They say life can change in an instant. For Amelia Davis, it changed in exactly 12 seconds. What happens when your world shatters? Your last hope is gone, and you're left with nothing but a dying child on a merciless road. This is the story of a mother's desperate fight, a powerful stranger's quiet compassion, and a journey back to life built on unexpected kindness. Before we delve into this raw, emotional tale of survival and profound connection, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments if you believe hope can bloom in the darkest places. The sun over the American West was merciless, a scorching 104 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius, that turned the air into something sharp and breathless. Asphalt shimmered like liquid mirages, but there was no water, no relief, only oppressive heat rising from the road like a cruel punishment. Clara Bennett had been here before, but this time it was different. Amelia Davis crouched on the roadside, her simple cotton dress torn, her knees bloodied, her skin sunburned and peeling, but none of it truly mattered. Not the blood, not the pain, not even the searing shame. All that mattered was the tiny, fragile weight in her arms. "Lily," she whispered, her voice raw, cracked by days of thirst and the crushing weight of grief. "Baby, please wake up, my love. Please don't scare Mama like this. I can't lose you too." The little girl, barely 5 years old, lay limp against her chest, her cheeks flushed scarlet with fever, her lips dry and cracked, her tiny fingers curled loosely around the hem of Amelia's dress. She had not stirred for the last hour. Car after car roared past them, kicking up dust. None slowed, none even glanced their way. The world moved on, indifferent, and Amelia remained, a mother with nothing left but a child slowly fading in her arms. She closed her eyes, trying desperately not to remember, but the memories were like sharp needles, piercing through her exhaustion. Only hours ago, she had stood at the imposing wrought iron gates of the Sterling estate, the home she once called hers. Eleanor Sterling, her late husband's mother, had stood in crisp white linen, hands folded, her gaze as icy as the North Pole. "You are not family anymore," she said coldly, her voice devoid of warmth. "You brought death to my son." Charles was drunk, Amelia had pleaded, her voice cracking, desperation clinging to every word. "He was angry. He should not have driven. He is dead because of you, his wife, his curse." Eleanor's voice sliced through hers, sharp and unforgiving. Beside her, Mr. Finch, the family's cold, efficient advisor, pointed dismissively to the gate. "Leave now, or we will have you arrested." Amelia had clutched Lily, her small body fevered and whimpering, and begged, "Please, just let me call a doctor. She needs help." But they slammed the heavy gate shut, and she had heard the metallic click of it locking, sealing her out, sealing her fate. She had turned away, holding her daughter, stumbling blindly down the long gravel driveway with bare feet and burning skin. Halfway down, Lily had tripped, her small head hitting the hard concrete, her arm bending at an unnatural angle. Amelia had screamed, a primal sound of terror, but no one had come. Later, from a payphone in a gas station, she had called her mother back in Arizona, a last, desperate hope. "Mama, I need a place to stay for a few days, just until I figure something out." Her mother's reply was cold, firm, unforgiving. "We told you not to marry into that family, Clara. You chose Charles. Now deal with what comes." Amelia's voice cracked. "But Lily's sick. I have nothing more to say." Her father had interjected, his voice flat, and then silence. They hung up. Now, Amelia sat on the roadside like discarded trash, clutching a 5-year-old girl with a swollen arm, burning skin, and fading breath. Her canvas bag, torn and useless, lay at her feet. A single bottle of water, nearly empty and too warm to be comforting, stood between them and nothingness. Amelia bent her head, her lips trembling against her daughter's forehead. "God, if someone has to go, let it be me. Please, not her. Take me instead." The air shimmered, the heat pressed down like an invisible, suffocating hand. No one stopped, not even to ask, until someone did. The low hum of an engine slowing, then the crunch of tires on gravel. Amelia did not lift her head. She had no more hope left to lift anything. A truck door creaked open, then the steady sound of boots on the gravel. A shadow fell across her and Lily, then silence. Finally, a voice, not loud, not demanding, just steady, just real. The little girl's burning up. I've got cold water, a truck with AC, and a doctor who owes me a favor. What do you think compelled this stranger to stop when so many others ignored her desperate plight? And what does it truly mean to find a sliver of humanity in your darkest hour? Share your raw emotions in the comments below. If this story of an unyielding mother and an unexpected lifeline is gripping you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of this raw, emotional journey. Amelia didn't move. She couldn't. She had been hurt too many times to react to kindness. Her arms tightened instinctively around Lily. I won't touch either of you, the man said again, softer now. I'll just leave this here. She looked up, a tall man, early 40s, faded jeans, gray shirt, worn boots, weathered skin, eyes not sharp but tired, kind in a quiet, unassuming way. He placed a sealed bottle of cold water gently on the ground a few feet away and stepped back. No threats, no questions, no judgments, just space, just presence. Amelia blinked hard, her eyes stinging. She looked down at Lily, whose lips had turned even paler, her breathing shallow, rapid. She reached out with shaking hands and grabbed the bottle, unscrewed the cap, poured a few drops on her fingers, and rubbed them on Lily's dry lips. The man did not move, did not push. He just stood there, a silent, unwavering presence. Amelia looked up at him again. He said nothing more, his gaze steady. She nodded, not because she trusted him, not because she believed the nightmare was over, but because at last, someone had not turned away. Someone had stayed. He opened the truck's back door. Amelia gathered Lily, rose slowly on trembling legs, and stepped toward him, toward shade, toward water, toward the first sliver of humanity she had seen in what felt like forever. Not safety yet, but no longer alone. Not this time. The truck hummed steadily down the long, empty highway, the wind outside thick with dust and the oppressive heat of the American West. Inside, however, silence filled the space, broken only by the soft purr of the air conditioning. Amelia sat stiffly in the back seat, her arms wrapped tightly around Lily, her 5-year-old daughter, whose head rested limply against her chest. Fever radiated through the child's thin dress like a furnace. Every now and then, Amelia leaned down to whisper her name, her lips brushing Lily's forehead, checking her breathing, her very existence clinging to each shallow rise and fall of Lily's small chest. In the driver's seat, the man said nothing. He adjusted the rearview mirror, not for traffic, but to watch the child, his gaze flicking to her chest to ensure it still rose and fell. No words passed between him and Amelia, but his hands gripped the wheel with a calm, unyielding steadiness, and his eyes never strayed long from the mirror. Amelia sat rigid, hyper-alert. She didn't know who he was, but something deep in her gut, a primal instinct born from desperation, told her he wasn't a threat. Not tonight. Not when Lily's life was slipping through her arms, and no one else in the world had bothered to stop. About 15 minutes into the drive, the man pulled over to the side of the deserted road. Amelia's heart jumped, a fresh surge of fear. He didn't speak. He just stepped out, walked to the back of the truck, retrieved a cooler, and returned. From a side pocket, he pulled a soft towel, soaked it thoroughly in the icy water, and gently laid it on Lily's burning forehead. He noticed Amelia shivering, her skin damp, chilled by the truck's blasting AC. He removed his worn denim jacket and, without touching her, draped it gently over her shoulders from behind. Amelia flinched, startled, but when she looked up, he was already seated again, hands resting on the wheel, his gaze fixed ahead. In the mirror, his eyes met hers for a fleeting moment and silently conveyed, "Keep it. The night's getting colder." What do you think is the true meaning behind Arthur's silent acts of kindness? And can Amelia, hardened by betrayal, ever truly trust a stranger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this raw, emotional story of unexpected compassion is gripping you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their journey to healing. By the time they reached his ranch, night had fully settled, cloaking the landscape in shadows. The truck rolled through a wooden gate and stopped in front of a brick farmhouse with white shutters and a wide porch wrapped in quiet shadows. He stepped out, unlocked the front door, flicked on a few lights, then turned back to them. Guest rooms on the left, warm waters in the kitchen, medicines in the top drawer. He didn't ask her name, didn't say, "Make yourself at home." He simply opened the door, walked a few steps ahead, and left her there. It didn't feel like traditional hospitality. It felt like quiet preparedness, a profound, unspoken readiness, as if he'd expected someone, maybe not her, but someone, to need this sanctuary. Inside the guest room, Amelia gently laid Lily on the soft bed. The little girl's breathing had steadied, a small, rhythmic sigh, but she was still warm, her skin damp with fever. Amelia looked around, her eyes wide with a rising panic. There were no towels, no basin to cool her daughter's burning skin. Frantic, she rushed into the hallway, desperate for anything. When she returned, she froze. At the foot of the bed sat a basin filled with warm, steaming water. Folded towels, both wet and dry, lay neatly beside it. On top, a note in simple, clear handwriting. "Water's warm, test it first. Use the soft cloth on her skin." He was gone. Amelia dropped to her knees and immediately began wiping Lily's face, arms, and legs. The little girl whimpered faintly but didn't stir, lost in the depths of her feverish sleep. Amelia reached for another towel, and there, beneath it, she found a small wooden hairbrush, worn smooth by countless strokes. Beside it, another note. "My daughter used to love this one. I hope it makes your little girl feel just as safe." Amelia's breath caught, a silent gasp. She hadn't cried when they threw her out of her home. Not when her own parents, the very people who should have loved her unconditionally, turned her away. Not when she carried her feverish child through scorching sun and abrasive gravel. But now, holding this simple, worn brush, reading this quiet, tender note, this unexpected kindness from a man who hadn't asked a single question, who offered no judgment, she broke. Tears spilled silently, uncontrollably, down her cheeks. She pressed the brush to her chest, then gently stroked it through Lily's tangled hair. The little girl stirred, a soft murmur escaping her lips. "Mama, this brush smells nice." Amelia let out a broken laugh, and then the sobs came harder, racking her thin frame. What profound impact do you think this simple act of kindness has on Amelia, who has faced so much rejection? And what does it truly mean to find a haven in the heart of a stranger? Share your raw emotions in the comments below. If this story of unexpected compassion is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their healing journey. In the hallway, Arthur leaned against the cool wall, eyes closed. He could hear her crying, soft, wrenching sobs that shook her. But he didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't knock. It had been a long, long time since someone else's pain stirred anything in him. But tonight, something shifted deep within his guarded chest. Not pity, not duty. Something quieter, more human. A raw empathy he hadn't known he still possessed. And he let it rise in his chest as the house, once silent and still, finally breathed again, filled with the complex, raw sounds of grief and the fragile, dawning promise of hope. Morning crept gently through the curtains of the guest room, soft and golden. Amelia stirred, her back aching slightly from where she had slept on the floor beside the bed. The first thing she heard was Lily's breathing, steady, rhythmic, and utterly real. She opened her eyes and saw her daughter still asleep, color having returned to her cheeks, her lips no longer cracked, her small hand now relaxed on the sheets. The fever had broken sometime in the night. Amelia sat up slowly, the quiet of the farmhouse unfamiliar but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came from space, from profound stillness, not from absence. On the nightstand, a tray sat waiting, simple and thoughtful. 2 slices of toast, a small bowl of jam, a hard-boiled egg. Beside it, a glass of milk for Lily and a handwritten note for Amelia. Kitchen's open. I'll be in the garden. She blinked at it for a moment, then looked around the room. Still no sign of the man who had saved them. She helped Lily sit up and fed her slowly. The little girl nibbled at the toast, drank some milk, and then leaned into her mother's shoulder with a sleepy hum of contentment. When Amelia finally ventured into the hallway, Lily in her arms, she found a folded piece of paper on the floor just outside the room. A perfectly crafted paper airplane, white, clean, and carefully made. Scrawled across one wing in careful block letters were the words, "For Lily." Lily's eyes lit up when she saw it. "Did you make this, Mama?" "No," Amelia said softly, her voice thick with unexpected emotion. "But someone did, just for you." They spent the morning in the guest room, Lily coloring quietly while Amelia tidied what she could. A small act of control in a world that had felt utterly out of control. Around noon, as the sun climbed high, Amelia stepped outside. She found Arthur bent over in the garden, dirt smudged on his jeans, a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his eyes. He looked up as she approached, but did not rise. "Mint's dying," he said simply, gesturing to a patch of half-withered leaves. "It's been overgrown with weeds, but the roots are still good though." Amelia knelt beside him. "I used to garden," she murmured, brushing her hands through the cool soil, the familiar feel of comfort. "Before everything." She pulled a weed, then another, their hands moving in unconscious rhythm. The mint began to take shape again beneath their fingers, green and clean and fragrant. As they stood, brushing soil from their palms, Arthur looked at her for the first time since the night before. His voice was quiet, almost unsure. "I'm sorry," he said. Amelia turned slightly, confused. "For what?" He hesitated, his gaze distant, then met hers. "Not for anything I did, but for what you've had to carry. Alone." That was it. Just that. Not pity. Not a promise to fix anything. Just simple, profound acknowledgement. Amelia blinked, the sun stinging her eyes. Or maybe it was something else entirely. No one had ever said that to her, not even her own family. "I didn't know it was okay to feel angry," she admitted, her voice raw. "Or tired or anything. I thought I just had to keep going." Arthur nodded, dusting his hands on his pants. "Sometimes, surviving just becomes a habit." They walked back toward the house side by side, a quiet understanding settling between them. Later that afternoon, Amelia sat on the porch swing while Lily napped again. Arthur brought her a glass of water, sat beside her, and said nothing. There was no need to speak. Inside the house, mint leaves steeped quietly in hot water, their aroma comforting. A small paper airplane rested beside a glass of crayons. And in the earth, something green had begun to grow again. For the first time in a long time, Amelia felt something profoundly settle inside her. Not safety, not trust, not yet, but space. Space to breathe, space to simply be. Space to stay, even if just for a while. What do you think is the true meaning of Arthur's acknowledgement for Amelia? And how does finding space in her life signal a turning point for her? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of quiet healing and dawning hope is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next poignant chapter. Rain tapped gently against the wooden roof of the porch, a steady, soothing rhythm that filled the silence without intruding. The late afternoon sky had turned a muted gray, and the fresh scent of wet earth drifted in with the cool breeze. Inside, little Lily slept curled beneath a patchwork blanket, her small frame finally resting easy, truly at peace. Amelia sat on the porch steps, cradling a warm mug of tea in her hands. She didn't drink it, just held it close, letting the gentle heat seep into her skin. Her eyes were distant, unfocused, not watching the rain, but remembering something far away, something painful. Arthur sat a few feet from her in an old rocking chair. He had placed a kettle on the small side table, but he didn't pour himself anything. He didn't ask questions. He didn't make noise. He just waited, not for answers, just to stay nearby, a silent, comforting presence. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was honest, profound, a shared space. Finally, Amelia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Charles used to be charming. The words were flat, devoid of emotion, like facts being stated. The kind of man people smiled at in grocery stores. He was funny, kind, when he wanted to be, but he wasn't good. Arthur said nothing, his eyes fixed on the edge of the porch where the rain hit the steps, his stillness an invitation to continue. Amelia's fingers tightened around the mug. The day after our wedding, he changed. Her voice dropped lower, filled with a cold, old pain. He took over my bank account, my phone. He said it was for convenience. She gave a small, bitter smile. Then it was my clothes, my friends, my time. She paused, her breath catching. If I didn't want to go to a dinner party because Lily had a fever, he'd yell. Once, he slammed his fist into the wall right beside my face, said, "You don't get to say no, understand?" The tea had gone cold in her hands, but she didn't notice. He made me feel like I was nothing without him, and for a while I believed it. The rain fell harder now, drumming a relentless rhythm on the roof above them. Neither moved. What profound impact do you think sharing this painful truth has on Amelia's healing journey? And how does Arthur's quiet presence offer her a different kind of solace? Share your raw emotions in the comments below. If this story of vulnerability and shared burdens is gripping you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next pivotal chapter. Amelia's voice dropped even lower, a raw confession. 1 year ago, the night he died, he was drunk. He called me from his car, screaming because I didn't show up at some charity event. I stayed home with Lily. She had a fever. She was crying. He wouldn't stop yelling. I hung up. She swallowed hard, the memory a bitter taste. An hour later, I heard the sirens. Didn't know it was him at first. Not until Eleanor Sterling came banging on the door. Amelia shook her head slowly, a single silent tear tracking a path down her cheek. She didn't cry. She didn't ask. She just looked at me and said, "You're the curse that killed my son. You never belonged to this family." Her hands trembled slightly as she set the mug down beside her. She made my life hell every day after that. Passive jabs. Looks that cut deeper than words. One morning, she told me I shouldn't touch the photo frames, said my hands brought bad luck. Amelia laughed once, a dry, hollow sound. After almost a year, she finally said the words, "Get out," and that was it. I had nowhere else to go. Her voice broke just slightly, raw with the memory of utter despair. My own mother told me, "You chose wrong, now live with it." My father hung up. She rubbed her palms on her jeans, as if trying to erase the crushing weight of those words from her skin. I didn't know where to go. I didn't even pack a full bag. I just picked up Lily and ran. A pause. Then, softly, Arthur slid a folded napkin across the porch floor, close to her hand. Not a word, just a simple, profound gesture. Amelia took it, dabbing at the corners of her eyes. "I'm not crying for them," she said, her voice choked. "I'm crying because for once, someone didn't ask me to explain. You just let me be." Arthur leaned back slightly in his chair, the old wood creaking softly beneath him. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently, his voice firm, unwavering. "You survived something most people wouldn't understand." Silence again. Then Amelia turned slightly toward him, her voice barely audible. "Do you ever worry?" she asked, vulnerability a raw edge in her tone. "That if you love again, they might leave? That you'll lose them too?" Arthur didn't look at her right away. His gaze stayed fixed out on the rain-drenched grass, lost in his own painful memories. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, rough with unspoken emotion. "I worry every day." He looked down at his own rough hands. "But do you know what scares me more? That I'll never try again? That I'll keep living like I already died with them?" Amelia nodded slowly, her eyes stinging. Not from pain, but from something tender, something profoundly unfamiliar. The rain continued to fall, steady and soft, a gentle rhythm of shared understanding. No declarations were made. No promises were spoken. Just two people sitting close enough to feel the same crushing weight of the past. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them had to carry it alone. The envelope came in the late morning, tucked between an electricity bill and a coupon flyer. Amelia found it in the old mailbox at the end of the ranch driveway, her fingers trembling the moment she saw the stark, official seal. Shady Valley County Court, custody petition. She stared at it for a long, frozen moment. The gentle breeze rustled the dry grass around her, but she stood utterly still, her world silently shattering. Back inside, the farmhouse was quiet. Lily was playing near the fireplace, humming softly to herself, completely oblivious, while Arthur fixed a drawer in the kitchen, the soft rasp of wood against wood filling the calm air. Amelia sat on the edge of the couch, tore the envelope open with a numbness that scared her more than the contents. The words stabbed off the page, cold and precise. Petition for legal guardianship. Eleanor Sterling versus Amelia Davis. Grounds: endangerment, negligence, mental instability. Requested relief: sole custody of minor child, Lily Davis, age 5. Her eyes blurred, the words swimming before her. She barely heard Lily skipping into the room. The little girl noticed the papers in her mother's hand, then the color draining from her face, the sudden, terrifying stillness of her mother. "Mama," Lily whispered, her small voice trembling with dawning fear. "What's wrong?" Amelia tried to smile, but her lips wouldn't obey. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just papers." Lily looked down at the page. She could not read most of it, but she saw her own name and the terrifying, unfamiliar words. "Am I going away? Are they taking me? Did I do something bad?" Lily's eyes widened, her voice quivering with terror. Amelia dropped the papers as if they were burning her hands and gathered her daughter in her arms, clutching her so tightly it made both of them shake. "No," she whispered, her voice fierce with a primal protectiveness. "No, no, no. You didn't do anything. You are perfect. You are mine." From the doorway, Arthur stood silently. He had seen the return address on the envelope. Read the tension in Amelia's shoulders the moment she stepped inside. He walked over, his presence a quiet anchor, and crouched beside them. "If you can't hold on to her," he said softly, his voice low and unwavering, "then we will." Amelia looked at him, her eyes wild with a raw, desperate fear. "She's all I have," she choked out. Arthur didn't flinch. "And that's all the reason we need." What profound strength do you think it takes to fight for your child when you feel you have nothing left? And how does Arthur's unwavering support redefine what family truly means? Share your raw emotions in the comments below. If this story of an unyielding mother and a surprising protector is gripping you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their dramatic journey. The next few days blurred into a waking nightmare. Amelia did not sleep much. Her hands trembled each time she brushed Lily's hair, a terrifying fear that it would be the last time. She stopped going into town. She couldn't bear the stares, the quiet whispers that followed her like shadows. Somehow they already knew. At the market a week earlier, she'd overheard a woman mutter, "The Sterling boy's widow? Poor child doesn't stand a chance." The cruel words had followed her home, clinging to her like smoke. Lily had noticed too. "Why don't they talk to you anymore?" she had asked, her eyes round and confused. "Why do they look like that?" Amelia tried desperately to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could she make a 5-year-old understand the cruelty of adults? The fear people had of stories they didn't care to comprehend, of truths that didn't fit their narrow worldviews? One evening while Lily slept, exhausted by her lingering fears, Amelia sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the court papers, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Arthur placed a warm mug of tea in front of her, then sat across from her without a word. "I can't lose her," Amelia whispered, her voice raw, fractured by terror. "I'll die if they take her." Arthur leaned forward slightly, his voice low and sure. "Then you fight, Amelia." He looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "You've already survived worse. You've carried her through storms most people would drown in, and you're still here." Tears welled in her eyes, hot and sharp. "But what if that's not enough?" "Then I'll stand with you," he said, his voice quiet but absolute. "Because I've never seen anyone fight as hard as you just to love someone." Amelia covered her face with both hands, her thin body trembling, finally releasing everything she'd held inside for so long. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, she sat at Lily's bedside, stroking her hair. "Mama," the child murmured in her sleep, "you won't let them take me, right?" Amelia closed her eyes, a fierce, unwavering resolve hardening her spirit. "Never," she whispered. "Not in this lifetime." And something profound settled in her chest then, not peace, not even hope, but a burning, unshakable resolve. A fire not born from rage, but from a fierce, unyielding love that simply refused to let go. She had been abandoned, insulted, erased, but no one would take her daughter. Not while she could still breathe. Not while her hands could still hold. Not this time. The town was small, and whispers traveled faster than the wind. First, Amelia noticed the silence. Greetings that once came with polite smiles turned into curt nods or complete avoidance. Then came the stares, those long, unblinking gazes that said everything people would not dare to utter to her face. "She's staying at Arthur Whitmore's place now. Can you believe it? She must be charming him into letting her stay. Bet she's after his land, that girl and her daughter. They know how to survive." Amelia tried desperately to ignore it, to let the words slide off her. But then came the words that cut deeper, delivered with a casual cruelty. "She's not even from here. I heard the girl's not even Charles's daughter. The whole thing's just a setup." At the bakery, she stood in line for 20 minutes, clutching Lily's hand. When it was finally her turn, the woman behind the counter looked straight through her as if she were made of glass. "We're sold out," the woman said, her voice flat, even though 2 loaves of fresh sourdough sat mockingly on the display shelf behind her. Amelia said nothing, just nodded and walked out, her chest tight. Outside, Lily clung to her hand, her little feet barely keeping up with Amelia's quick, frantic pace. When they finally got home, Amelia placed her purse on the kitchen table and reached for the skillet, her intention to cook a simple meal. But her hands were trembling so badly she couldn't grip the handle. She leaned forward, both palms flat on the counter, breathing hard, trying to steady herself. "Mama!" Lily's voice came soft and scared from the living room. "Did I do something wrong?" Amelia shook her head, swallowing the lump in her throat, her voice thick with unshed tears. "No, baby, no, never." She sank down onto the floor, knees pulled to her chest, unable to stop her hands from shaking, from trembling. "What do you think is the hardest part about facing judgment from a community? And how does Arthur's quiet presence offer a different kind of strength?" Share your insights in the comments below. If this raw, emotional story of unwavering love in the face of adversity is gripping you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their journey. That evening, Arthur came in from the barn, his boots thudding softly, and found Amelia still in the same spot, a pot of uncooked rice sitting cold on the stove and no light on in the kitchen. He didn't say a word. He simply crossed the room, knelt beside her, and gently took her trembling hand in his. She looked at him, eyes swollen with unshed tears, lips parted but silent. He rose, still holding her hand, and led her out the back door. They walked through the cool grass, past the edge of the garden where mint and rosemary now grew in neat lines, until they reached the old willow tree that stood near the fence line, its branches sweeping low. He sat down first on the bench beneath its ancient branches. Amelia hesitated, then followed, sitting beside him. They said nothing for a long time, the silence stretching comfortably between them. The breeze stirred the branches above them, casting shifting shadows over their faces. Finally, Arthur spoke, his voice low, steady, a quiet anchor in the stormy world. You can stay quiet when the world is screaming, he said, but you do not have to stay quiet when you're with me. Amelia turned her face toward him, her throat tightening with unshed emotions. I don't want to ruin your life, she whispered. I see the way people look at you now, like you've made a mistake, like you've let someone like me into a place too good for me. Arthur met her eyes, his gaze unwavering. If anyone in this town thinks I'm a fool for letting a woman stay who saved her child with nothing but bare hands and a breaking heart, he said, his voice firm, then maybe I don't care much for their judgment. He paused, then added, You didn't ask to be here, Amelia, but I'm glad you are. Amelia blinked fast, fighting back the fresh sting of tears. The silence between them thickened, but it was not empty. It was full of every unspoken ache, every hidden bruise, every lonely moment neither had dared voice aloud until now. I feel like I'm carrying a sign around my neck, she said, her voice raw. Like people see me and only remember what I've lost, what I failed at. Arthur reached down, pulled up a blade of grass, and slowly rolled it between his calloused fingers. I don't see that, he said. What do you see? Amelia asked, a fragile hope in her tone. A woman who hasn't stopped fighting, even when she's tired, even when she wanted to. Tears slipped down Amelia's cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them, and Arthur didn't reach to wipe them either. He just sat with her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence, far enough that she didn't feel trapped. They stayed like that for a long time, beneath the soft hush of the willow, because sometimes the loudest thing a person could do was choose to stay beside someone in silence. And that silence, profoundly shared, was louder than any rumor, any doubt, any crushing loneliness. The sound of hooves against dirt filled the quiet morning air. Arthur stood in the stable, brushing down his mare, his movements steady and grounded. The barn had always been his place of peace, a sanctuary from the world's noise. He heard her footsteps before she spoke, a soft tread on the worn planks. Still using the old brush, came a familiar voice. He turned. His mother, Eleanor Whitmore, stood in the doorway, her beige coat impeccably buttoned, her silver hair pinned neatly. There was no judgment in her voice, just quiet observation. I heard about the girl, she said, her gaze direct. Arthur continued brushing for a moment, then set the brush down and turned to face her fully. She and her daughter needed somewhere safe, he stated simply. Eleanor stepped closer, her expression unreadable. Are you sure this is safety for you too, Arthur? She exhaled slowly. You've built a life here that doesn't hurt anymore. But she's still bleeding. Are you ready for that? Ready to carry more weight again? Arthur glanced at his rough, calloused hands, then back at his mother. Maybe that's what makes it feel real, he murmured, a profound truth in his words. That evening, dinner passed quietly. Amelia had cooked something simple. Roasted vegetables, fresh bread, a comforting soup. She moved with careful grace in the kitchen, her words few, her eyes lowered, a quiet dignity in her every action. Lily sat beside her, hands folded neatly, trying hard to be good, sensing the unspoken tension in the air. Eleanor said little, but she watched everything: the way Amelia gently wiped Lily's mouth, how she sliced the bread with hands accustomed to harder work, how she comforted the child without raising her voice, even when soup spilled on her shirt. After dinner, Eleanor looked at Amelia. Would you join me a moment? Amelia followed her to the porch. The air was cool, and the lingering scent of mint drifted in with the gentle breeze. Eleanor leaned on the railing, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon, lost in contemplation. I didn't come to oppose, she said, her voice soft. I came because I'm a mother. I've loved, and I know how grief changes people. Not just in the moment, but in all the moments after. She turned, her gaze direct, unwavering. My worry isn't who you are. It's what happens if Arthur opens his heart again and you leave. What profound impact do you think Eleanor's raw honesty has on Amelia? And how do you believe shared grief can forge an unexpected connection between two souls? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of vulnerability and dawning understanding is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next poignant chapter. Amelia folded her hands in her lap, her voice barely a whisper. I'm not asking to belong or to be trusted. I only know I won't hurt him. If I thought I would, I'd go. Eleanor studied her, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. You talk like someone who expects to be pushed away. Amelia gave a small, sad smile. It's happened enough. Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Eleanor's voice softened, filled with a deep, shared sorrow. I know what it's like to outlive your child. And the silence that follows, it's the loudest sound in the world. Amelia nodded, her own eyes stinging. It's all I've heard for a year. Eleanor looked down, a silent acknowledgement of shared pain. Then, without another word, she went back inside. The next morning, Amelia awoke to the comforting smell of something warm and buttery. In the kitchen, Eleanor was placing a plate of freshly baked scones on the table. I used to make these for Arthur when he was small, she said, a faint, nostalgic smile on her lips. They're better with honey. Lily clapped her hands with delight. They smell like cookies. Amelia blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected gesture, the quiet warmth. Thank you, she said softly. Eleanor looked up, her gaze direct. Children remember the small things. A warm kitchen, a smile at breakfast. Make sure she remembers. There were no hugs, no grand speeches. But when Eleanor poured 3 cups of tea, including one for Amelia, it was enough. Something had shifted profoundly. It hadn't erased the distance between them, but it had irrevocably softened it. And for Amelia, that was the start of something she hadn't dared hope for in a very, very long time. The courtroom was cool and sterile, its walls a pale shade of gray. Amelia sat at the front, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, her shoulders drawn in as if bracing for one last, devastating blow. Arthur sat beside her, a steady, composed presence, his hand resting reassuringly close to hers. Behind them, Eleanor Whitmore, Arthur's mother, sat in the second row, her hands folded neatly, her expression unreadable, yet her very presence spoke volumes of her silent support. When the judge finally began to read the final decision, Amelia stopped breathing. Time seemed to suspend itself in the hushed room. Petitioner's request for custody is denied. Full legal custody remains with the child's mother, Amelia Davis. There was no cheer, no outburst, just a silence so vast it swallowed every thought in her head, leaving only a ringing echo of profound relief. Then, slowly, almost afraid to meet anyone's gaze, Amelia turned. Eleanor reached across the space between the benches and gently squeezed Arthur's hand. A subtle gesture, yet powerful. When Amelia's eyes met hers, the older woman gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a quiet acknowledgement. Amelia didn't smile. She couldn't, but her eyes, glistening with unshed tears, spoke the words she couldn't say. Thank you. Thank you for staying. That night, the dinner table at Arthur's farmhouse looked like any other. But it wasn't. Lily chattered joyfully about her new crayons and a girl at school who let her borrow a glitter sticker. Her voice a bright, innocent counterpoint to the quiet emotions in the room. Amelia listened, nodding, the soft clink of cutlery and the comforting aroma of roasted vegetables surrounding them like a warm, protective blanket. Arthur passed the bread, his movements calm and steady. Eleanor scooped more mashed potatoes onto Amelia's plate without a word. There was no formal toast, no grand announcement, but something fundamental had shifted. No longer were they merely 4 people sharing a space. They were sharing a life. What do you think is the true meaning of a shared life that transcends words and formalities? And how does this quiet victory pave the way for a deeper connection? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of an earned triumph and a blossoming family is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next pivotal chapter. Later that week, Amelia and Arthur worked side by side in the garden, pulling up stubborn weeds and trimming back the burgeoning spring growth. The sun dipped low, painting the grass in amber light, casting long shadows. Lily sat nearby on a soft blanket, coloring quietly, her small voice humming a happy, tuneless melody. Amelia wiped her forehead with the back of her arm, leaving a smudge of dirt on her cheek. She looked at Arthur, who was carefully inspecting the mint patch, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Do you ever think," she said softly, her voice barely audible, "that people only stay if they don't know the whole story?" She hesitated, then continued, her gaze fixed on the earth. "I've never believed anyone would stay after they saw everything. The broken parts, the pieces I've had to glue back together just to breathe." Arthur glanced at her, puzzled for a moment. Then his eyes softened, understanding dawning. "I see all of it, Amelia," he said gently, his voice firm, unwavering. "That's why I'm still here." Amelia's breath hitched, not from sadness, but from the terrifying, beautiful realization that he meant it. He wasn't just being kind. He was choosing to stay. As the evening cooled, they packed up their tools and walked back towards the house. Lily raced ahead, eager to show Eleanor her latest drawing. Two tall figures and a small girl, holding hands under a towering willow tree. On the porch, Amelia and Arthur sat on the old swing, side by side, their hands coated in the fresh, earthy scent of mint. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. He reached over, took her hand, and laced his fingers through hers. A simple, profound gesture. No pressure, no promise, just presence. Lily's laughter rang out in the yard, full and bright, chasing the last light of day into the sky. Inside the house, the lights glowed soft and golden. And for the first time in a long time, the walls did not echo with silence, but with life, with movement, with family. A family not built from ceremony or blood, but from the quiet decision to keep showing up, to simply stay. They didn't begin in love. They began in grief, in brokenness, in profound fear. And day by day, they didn't heal with time alone. They healed with each other. If this story touched something deep in your heart, if you saw a part of yourself in Amelia's quiet resilience, in Arthur's unwavering stillness, or in little Lily's innocent, guiding hope, then know this. You are not alone. Somewhere out there, someone is quietly surviving what no one else sees. And sometimes all it takes is one hand reaching out and choosing not to let go. We believe in the quiet power of compassion, resilience, and the kind of love that does not shout, but stays. If you felt moved by this journey, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, where we share true-to-life stories that heal, inspire, and remind us of the goodness still found in everyday hearts. Because sometimes, the stories we need most are the ones that stay with us long after the screen fades to black. Subscribe now and let the next story find its way to your soul.